a quiet neighborhood in Wichita, Kansas. A street where children played freely, where families waved to each other, where doors were left unlocked at night. It was the kind of place that made people feel safe. Until one morning in January 1974, when the sound of police sirens shattered that peace. Inside a modest family home, officers discovered a nightmare. An entire family, bound, tortured, murdered. It was not a robbery. It was not random. It was a message. And the man behind it would later call himself BTK. Bind. Torture. K***L. The story of Dennis Rader is one of the darkest reminders that monsters do not always lurk in the shadows. Sometimes, they sit across from you in church. Sometimes, they knock on your door with a clipboard and a smile. To his neighbors, Rader was a father, a husband, a city worker. But to the people of Wichita, he became the face of terror. Dennis Rader grew up in Kansas, the eldest of 4 boys. Outwardly, he was quiet, polite, even ordinary. But beneath that mask, disturbing fantasies took root. As a boy, he was fascinated by control, tying knots, imagining women bound and helpless. He carried those fantasies into adulthood, hiding them from the world. He married, he had children, he served his church. Hit that subscribe button if you want to know more dark truths. But in the secret corners of his mind, he was consumed by urges he would not resist. On January 15, 1974, those urges became real. The Otero family began their day like any other. Joseph and Julie were busy with their children, Joseph Jr. and Josephine. They didn't know that Rader had been watching them, studying their habits, turning their lives into what he called a project. That morning, he broke into their home. Calm, polite even, he told them it was a robbery. But it was a lie. He tied them with cords, methodically stripping away their control. One by one, he strangled and suffocated them, ending with Josephine, just 11 years old. He hanged her in the basement. For the police who walked through that home, the scene was almost unbearable. A whole family gone, and nothing made sense. The city was shaken. No one could understand how such cruelty could happen in such an ordinary place. And then, just months later, it happened again. 21-year-old Catherine Bright was murdered in her home. Her brother Kevin was stabbed but survived, giving police the first description of the killer, a stocky man with cold, emotionless eyes. It was only the beginning. Soon, the killer revealed himself. He wrote letters to the media, taunting police, describing his crimes in chilling detail. He signed them with 3 letters that would haunt Wichita forever. BTK. Bind them. Torture them. Kill them. He wanted the world to know. He wanted recognition. The city lived in fear. Parents locked their doors. Women looked over their shoulders. Neighbors whispered. How could anyone feel safe knowing this man could be watching from anywhere? And yet, behind closed doors, Dennis Rader lived a normal life. He was raising 2 children. He was active in his church. He was the man writing parking tickets for overgrown lawns. He smiled in photos. He said prayers. And all the while, he plotted. Over the years, BTK killed again. Shirley Vian, a young mother, strangled while her children were locked away. Nancy Fox, murdered in her own home, a crime Rader himself reported to police in a chilling phone call. Yes, he said calmly, you will find a homicide at 843 South Pershing. Nancy Fox. And then he hung up. Each murder was precise, ritualistic, like he was feeding an obsession. He called his victims projects. To him, they were objects, not people. And when he finally stopped in 1991, the city dared to hope the nightmare was over. Maybe he was dead. Maybe he was in prison. Maybe BTK was gone. But he wasn't. In 2004, the 30th anniversary of his first murders, Rader couldn't resist the spotlight anymore. He sent packages to local media. Photographs. Notes. Clues. He even left a cereal box, mocking police with his cereal games. Wichita was terrified all over again. And then, in one of the most bizarre twists in history, Rader made the mistake that ended it all. He sent a floppy disk to police, asking if it could be traced. He thought he had erased the evidence. He hadn't. Hidden on the disk was one word, Dennis, and a link to Christ Lutheran Church, where the president of the congregation was Dennis Rader. Investigators moved quickly. They obtained DNA from Rader's daughter's medical records and compared it to crime scene DNA. It was a match. On February 25, 2005, police pulled Dennis Rader over and placed him under arrest. The monster had finally been caught. In his confession, Rader described his crimes with a chilling lack of emotion. He spoke about binding, torturing, and killing his victims as though he were describing a job. He admitted to 10 murders. He gave details only the killer could know. And when he was asked why, his answer was simple: it was what he wanted. In August 2005, Dennis Rader was sentenced to 10 consecutive life terms, the maximum punishment under Kansas law. For the families of his victims, it was not justice. Nothing could bring back their loved ones. But at least the man who had terrorized Wichita for 3 decades would never walk free again. The community tried to heal, but the scars remain. How could a man who stood at the pulpit in church, who tucked his children into bed at night, who waved to neighbors across the street, also be a sadistic killer? That is the horror of Dennis Rader. That is the terror of BTK. Evil does not always wear a mask. Sometimes, it wears the face of someone you think you know. What do you think happened? Leave your thoughts in the comments and hit that subscribe button if you want to know more dark truths.